welcome in, and you are sitting courtside with Karli Bell. Joining me this week is a basketball aficionado, is what I would call him. He knows the hoops games inside and out, ranging from college to the W, even some NBA. He knows hoops more than anybody, I would say, that I know right now in the WNBA beat. From the Washington Post, Kareem Copeland, everyone. Claps and claps.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate you.
I'm glad to have you here, my guy. First off, as we're recording this on Sunday, it's June 15th. Let's get straight into the WNBA rankings. So at number 1, I feel like we're going to just see a flip-flop back and forth between the 1 and the 2 spot all year between New York and Minnesota. Right now, Minnesota is number 1 at 10-1. At number 2 is the New York Liberty at 9-1. Number 3, the Atlanta Dream at 8-3. Phoenix Mercury now at 8-4 after their win over the Las Vegas Aces, and they are at number 4. At number 5 would be the Seattle Storm, sitting at 6-5. Number 6 will be the Las Vegas Aces at 5-5. Indiana Fever following them at 5-5. Golden State following them at 5-5. A lot of teams at 500. Washington Mystics right behind them at 4-7. LA Sparks after that at 4-8. Chicago Sky at 3-7. Connecticut Sun at 2-8. And then to round everything out is the Dallas Wings at 1-11. So first off, the day that we're recording this, like I said, it's right after Angel Reese racked up her first career triple-double. And Kareem, you also bring a lot of knowledge because you covered Angel at Maryland.
Yep.
You have seen her growth from freshman year in college to now second year in the WNBA. There's always a lot of comments and talk that comes with her, obviously, but with her notching this in her just second season in the W, what trajectory and what growth have you seen out of her from when you covered her at Maryland through LSU and to now?
Well, it's funny, we're seeing her with the ball in her hands a lot more right now, right? Kind of a little bit as a facilitator. And, going back to that freshman year at Maryland, she was calling herself a big guard even back then, so she's always kind of wanted to kind of have that responsibility and play that role. And, it never quite, she never had a coach that kind of fully all the way bought into it. And it seems like that's happening a little bit more this year. And, she's always been a willing passer. She's always been able to hit the boards like she is. When she was younger, she played some guard before she hit a growth spurt and became who she is now. So she's always kind of had that a little bit of that skill set, and that not just the skill set, but that mindset also, right? And so it's not hugely surprising. She's always been really well-rounded. I know everybody kind of talks about the shooting percentages and that kind of stuff. And, those are kind of the things that you can work on and grow on and things like that. More than what I give Angel so much credit for is the first day I met her, she wanted to be in this position that she's in now, both on the court and off the court. And she was a confident 17, 18-year-old that this was where she was going to be one day. And it's really cool to have seen that play out. I mean, I know it hasn't always been smooth, and I know some people don't absolutely love her and all, but the fact that she's kind of approached this throughout her career and knew what she wanted and knew what she wanted to do at 17, 18 years old and be able to go out and make that stuff happen is pretty darn impressive. And here she is, all-star last year. Now she's got a triple-double under her belt. It's really cool to kind of have watched that growth over the last, what are we talking about, 5-6 years, something like that? So not a huge surprise to see Angel where she is today.
It feels good to see that confidence has never wavered too. That's the biggest thing. I heard that confidence, when she was at LSU. I did not watch her at Maryland, unlike you, but then when she got to the Sky, that freshman year of the WNBA, that confidence just exuded out of her. She just is, she has a podcast named after it. She's unapologetically Angel. And now it's good to see we saw the assisting in the preseason, and to now see it be not just more consistent, but also more fluid in what she's doing offensively. And I think the other thing that I don't think people give her enough credit for is what she does defensively. You know, she won Defensive Player of the Year and Unrivaled, and that was something she really honed in on, said that it was something she really wanted to create and make her own craft. And she always said, she goes, you know, my shot's going to get there, but I can contribute defensively to the game. And that's something that doesn't always show up on the stat sheet. Deflections are not things that are, you know, tallied. So it's good to see this, the confidence out of her. For me, you know, watching her this year, I want to see that just become consistent. Not only did Angel Reese have a historic day, because it was a matinee, but Hailey Van Lith had put up her first double-digit scoring game of her rookie season, leading Sky scorers with 16 points, coming up off the bench as well. And you saw her at TCU, you followed her there. I think the biggest thing that everyone worried about when Vandersloot went down was, can Hailey step up and be the point guard? And I think that's something that in the New York and the Atlanta game, I wasn't very confident in, because you could kind of see the nerves get to her. You could feel she felt the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always like saying, well, it's the opponent, because Connecticut is, you know, near the basement in the league. Mm-hmm. But for her to have that confidence to not only put up 16 points, but also have them be efficient 16 points. When you've seen her, you know, throughout her time in college, also at LSU, TCU to now, do you think that she has what it takes to be a starting point guard here in the WNBA?
I certainly think she has the mindset. Like, I think that was a huge thing, especially about her time at TCU, because remember, she left out of LSU on a down note, and her confidence was really kind of crushed. You know, she didn't play well there. Whether that was, you know, just a product of herself or a product of the system, that wasn't a good year for her. That didn't work out really well. But she got to TCU and had people who like believed in her and backed her, and she's talked a lot about her kind of getting her mind right and getting her confidence right and believing in herself and that kind of thing, and, you know, talking to a psychologist and all of that kind of stuff. I think that TCU year was huge for her, literally just between the ears, to kind of get her in the right mental space. She's always had that skill set. And so it's hard for me to judge right now, to kind of guess her trajectory, her career. But you know what? She's about to get thrown in the fire. And, you know, you ain't got no choice but to sink or swim sometimes. A point guard is asked to do so much. So you've got to learn your teammates, learn where they like the ball, how, you know, whether it's, you know, some like to come off a pick and catch the ball up here. Someone to come off and catch a bounce pass. Just all of those little intricacies about learning your teammates and all of that kind of stuff. Now that's the challenge, especially that I think for any young point guard in the league. But I think she's at least got the head for it, where all of the stuff that surrounds it won't be too big. And, you know, and she's on a team where there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of, you know, they get a lot of attention over there in Chicago. I think that part of it, which could be a lot on a lot of people's shoulders, I think she'll be able to handle that part. So now she just has to worry about getting on the floor and taking care of business out there.
I think also something that I don't think people understand about her career that collegiately that I think is also benefiting her right now is she transferred a lot. So she had to learn systems incredibly quickly and had to learn how to be a facilitator somewhat, not to the level of what the W asks, obviously, but still be efficient offensively and also defensively as well. That's the one thing that always stood out to me about her out of college is what she does defensively. She's real pesky, hands are everywhere, tight face guarding, really causes problems for anyone that she's on. And I thought that was something that would translate really well. But I really want to see her have I think this game was a good way for her to, like you said, mentally realize that she can do this and then see if she can carry it into who the Sky are playing on Tuesday, which is the Washington Mystics. You are the end-all, be-all guru of Washington right now. So I think, and I can say this here very proudly, I very much underestimated what the Mystics are, who they could. Okay, so, all right, it's felt on both sides. First off, what about the Mystics is something that I think no one expected them to be this good. But why do you think they were able to come together so quickly and put up efficient games, even in losses too? They're still efficient, in what they've been able to do. What's really stood out to you so far about the Mystics team?
They have been super efficient before today. Today was a rough one for them. They took it on the chin today, and I think they shot 29.2% and scored a total of 22 points in the second half. Like, today was a rough one for sure. But throw that one out. A couple different things. First off, Kiki Iriafen and Sonia Citron, who are the number 3 and 4 picks, Sonia was number 3, have been, I think, better than people expected right away. And the speed of which they've picked up things. I was talking to Brittany Griner today, and she talked about Kiki and said there's never been a moment where she's backed down. She's not afraid to go at everybody in the league, and there was no warming up for her. The way the season started, she had BG one night, she had Tina Charles another night. They've already gone through, I think they had Jonquil when they played in New York. I think she got banged up. She actually got banged up in that game, but there was no easing into the league for Kiki, and she had success right away, and now you can see that confidence kind of even kick up another level for her. With Sonia Citron, I think the question was, would her game, especially the type of player she is, translate this fast? Because she's not someone you run a lot of plays for. She's another one of these players that, is so heady. She gets 6 points a game off of a back cut, sets a screen and gets a couple open threes per game. She has yet to score under double digits through her first 11 games of the year. And I believe if the stat was right, she's the 10th player in WNBA history to ever do so through her first 11 games.
Wow.
And so it's that part has really been incredible, from the fact of you can just run your offense and do your other stuff, and you don't have to worry about kind of going out of the way to manufacture shots for her. And they've got this new offense, 8 seconds or less, that they're trying to run. They're trying to get up and down the floor and get a shot up within the first 8 seconds of the shot clock. When they're playing really well, they're playing well in transition and getting out and running in that way. When you've got the youngest team in the league, that fits really well. The pieces fit that style really well. You've got Brittany Sykes, who's having a career year. I think she's number 4 in the league in scoring. So we've always known about her defensive prowess, and she had a good offensive game, but this year, as kind of the senior player on the team, she's really kind of taken over in that area and become aggressive, and with the ball in her hand is there's only a few people in this league that can stay in front of her when she gets, on a straight line drive. And
True.
So she's really been taking over in fourth quarters, and she's kind of had that mindset. So I think all of those things have really kind of fit in together, with those 3 being the catalyst. And now you've got Shakira Austin coming back. She's finally getting healthy. All of these kind of pieces have kind of fit in pretty well with each other, especially having some youngsters that are kind of mature, especially those 2 rookies that we're talking about, and Aaliyah Edwards, who's, she was banged up at the beginning of the year, but she's starting to find herself, and Jade Melbourne, super young, but this is her, 3rd year in the league? And so, and she's got a bunch of experience playing semi-pro ball back in Australia. So I don't think these are your typical youngsters that you usually see. And the fact that they're playing so kind of wide open and fast, it almost reminds you a little bit of a college team. I keep saying a little bit like, they're young, they're fast. Let's run. Let's try to run against these other teams that might have veterans that don't get up and down as fast, or may have veterans with centers or bigs that don't get up and down as well. That's actually been the one thing that really hasn't worked so far. Steph Dolson, y'all remember her from Chicago?
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't quite fit this new fast system, and so they're still trying to figure out how to integrate her. And so I've talked to her a little bit about trying to figure this out, and she just said this offense is so different for her because first of all, they're getting up and down so fast, and that's really not her style of game, number one. And a
Mhm.
lot of times, what she's been used to is kind of being that screener and playing that pick and pop game so much. Well, the way that they're playing now, she's in that action some, but she also finds herself kind of in the corner, kind of waiting for a kick out kind of situation. And
Mhm.
that has never really been her game. Those corner threes have never really, she's really kind of extended elbow kind of around the top of the arc. That's always been her strong suit. So
Mhm.
they're asking her to do some different things. And I don't think she's quite found her footing yet. And we'll see how that, continues to go as they get more games under their belt. And the next part of a young team taking that next step is kind of learning how to close games, how to
Mhm.
close quarters, those final 2 or 3 minutes of each quarter that is so important on every level of basketball. I think that's a thing that they need to start getting a little bit better at, because right now it kind of feels like in those moments it's kind of give Slim the ball, give Brittany Sykes the ball, and everybody else kind of get out of the way. And then, which has worked really well because Slim has been balling, but at the same time, all of a sudden it seems like they're running one on five a little bit with everybody kind of four corners and just kind of watching her go, which has worked in stretches. But I think this team is better when everybody's kind of involved a little bit, or this team is best when everybody's involved a little bit. That's kind of who they are right now. They want to shoot a lot more. Well, they're shooting a lot of threes, but they're not going down like at the
Yeah.
clip that they want to. I talked to Sidney Johnson about this a couple times, and he likes where the shots are coming from, but he said they kind of need more from the better shooters. So I feel like they
Okay.
would love to get Citron a couple more attempts. I feel like they would love to get Dolson in a groove. The fact that she's struggling from three when that is her game, that kind of knocks that percentage down. Emily Engstler is starting to get some more run, and this team has got so many bigs and really only one true three, which is Sonia Citron.
Mhm.
So they've been experimenting
Yeah.
with a big lineup with Emily Engstler playing the three a little bit, which is, she said she has never done that before, so she's kind of getting used to that. She said, I've never been having to chase people over screens before because she's always been in the post.
Right.
But she led the league in 3-point percentage last year. So I think they'd like to get her a couple more looks.
Yeah.
Not as many attempts as some, but the
Yeah.
percentage was there. And so I think that's what they're looking for, trying to get their shooters, their top shooters, a few more attempts. I think they like the looks that they're creating, but I think they want different people shooting it more often, kind of thing. It's the youngest team in the league, and that's the kind of stuff that's going to happen as they learn to win and they learn to, play in a hole and try to dig themselves out of hole, or try to learn to keep leads when they're up and, keep the foot on somebody's neck and not let them fight back, kind of a thing. And so it's been there's been some times where, they look like gangbusters, and there's some times where it's been like, today was one of those times it was a little bit rough. And so I think that's just kind of the process of learning with a new team and learning, two things. They're all learning each other and they're learning new scheme. And so that's kind of just where they are at the moment.
It sounds like what the Sky need to prepare for then is their perimeter defense which has been just an issue for the Sky all year, is locking down the arc, not allowing anyone to get hot from a certain spot, make the shots. If they're gonna take the three, make them a difficult three, make them contested. And then transitional defense. So the two things that the Sky struggle at more than anything is what Washington's gonna give them this week. So we'll see what happens. I'm intrigued. It's kind of a homecoming for Sidney Johnson. He was an assistant here last year. He was a super fun person when I got to talk to him a few times, on the bench. Such a defensive minded individual too. So to see some offensive efficiency out of it from a coach that's very defensive focused and has more of that type of mentality is a really good thing to see. There's a lot of Sky on there. You got Emery Vatansover there too.
Well, and Emery's the offensive guru,
Right? Exactly.
And so that's what he brought in, and Emery's done a really good job of installing that and getting them in that concept and that mind frame of really wanting to go. So I actually give him a ton of credit where he put together a pretty good staff of people that bring different skill sets to the table. He's also an analytics guy,
Oh
so
yeah.
they brought in an analytics person and another coach who's big in those areas. And so I give him credit. I think he did a good job of putting together a diverse staff.
That's a good thing to hear. There's so many rookie coaches throughout the league, and I think people are seeing that the coaches that have been in the W the longest are the ones that are being more successful right now at the start of the season. Sandy Brondella, Becky Hammond, something's going on in Las Vegas. We'll get into the Aces in a little bit, and then you also have, oh my gosh, Cheryl Reeve, but who's like, that's Cheryl Reeve. She's Cheryl Reeve, like it's just she's one of the greatest basketball minds out there. And then you're seeing a lot of these rookie head coaches that are still trying to find their footing. Tyler Marsh, I would say, is one of them, trying to really find their footing in what they want their identity to be in this league. Before we talk the rest of the WNBA with Kareem, make sure you follow us at Courtside KB on all platforms. That's Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky. I think that's all of them. I forget. I lose track. There's so many of them. Oh, Threads. There's the other one. So on Threads as well. Make sure you tune into our website, which is free for everyone. There's going to be things that I write off of what Kareem has shared with us this week. And then looking ahead at the rest of the WNBA season, that's courtsidewithkarlibell.com. And then if you want even more in-depth things like film breakdowns, history lessons, all that jazz, make sure you join our Patreon. Those episodes drop on Thursdays each week. All right, Kareem, not only do you cover the Mystics, you also cover the entire WNBA. And I think you and I both, I don't want to speak for you, but I think when Minnesota and New York came into the season and we saw how they were playing, we're like, okay, these are the two most dominant teams in the league. One, has it shocked you that it's really kind of been those two teams running away? Or do you believe that we could get, I've kind of predicted that we're going to see a rematch of the finals this year. It's just kind of what we're seeing. I don't want to say, playoffs are playoffs. They can do anything. Mm-hmm. But, what have you really seen out of both Minnesota and New York that just makes them so, it's hard for granted, they both picked up their first losses this week, but it's still very hard. Every game of those, both of those games were so close, down to the wire, last 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. What is it about their styles of play that has just shown why they're the number one and number two teams in the league?
Well, with Minnesota, for me, everything starts with Fee. Everything starts with Nafisa Collier. And I just, coming into the season, she was my favorite for MVP.
Same.
Just because I thought you could see it in her eyes that she had this mindset of she was going to come back this year on a whole nother level. And she was already, at an incredible level, runner-up last year. But I think she kind of took that finals loss to heart. And I could really start seeing it. I started seeing it at Unrivaled. I went down there that opening week, and it just seemed like she was kind of carrying herself in a different way. And the way that she approached everything seemed to be laser focused. And even in Unrivaled, it seemed like every possession really mattered to her on both ends of the floor. And I was like, man, if you're going this hard now, I can only imagine what's going to happen when we get to the summertime and it's time to play in the league. And it really has transferred over. And I think you see that out of those level athletes, those level competitors. Sometimes they get to the finals and they get lose. And quite frankly, they get pissed off. And they come back that next year on a mission wanting to prove something. And that's kind of the feel that I got from Fee, even during the off season. And so when this year started and she was on that run already, I was like, yep, that's what we saw. Told you could hear it. You could hear it in the way she talked about things. Just everything about her just screamed like someone who was on a mission. And you surround her with the depth and the shooters and an incredible coach and a smart staff behind that coach. That was a scenario that it doesn't surprise me that they're playing as well as they're playing. New York, now the question always becomes, you win that title, you have the parade, everybody's loving you and blowing smoke. Do you come back with that same mentality, that same passion that you were chasing it before? I think that's a group that would have it anyway. Stewie, Sabrina, JJ, those aren't players that are gonna be like that sit back and are just like, hey, we got a ring. I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, and now we can coast. So I don't think that they were a group that was like that anyways. But now you add in a Natasha Cloud, a big point guard who's gonna fit in perfectly defensively, who now also doesn't have to carry the defensive load that she's been asked to do, that she was asked to do last year in Phoenix, that she was asked to do for years in Washington. And now she can be her kind of truest offensive self. Whereas I think on teams in the past, she had it in her. You knew she was had a level of, I mean, you could just see by the numbers that she was a good offensive player, but it was always like, yo, if you could get a little bit more out of her, you could take a team from here to being like elite. But you kind of needed it out of her, which kind of, and at times, 3 years ago, when it was her and Brittany Sykes on Washington, and the entire team was injured. There were times they were playing with like 8 players, and those two literally had to carry the offensive load every night. And they were able to, but the team struggled. And again, it's almost like you want to get spoiled with Tosh. Like you're asking a lot if you need her to be one of your top scorers. But if she can be a third or fourth option, and everything that you get from her is a little bit of a bonus, and the fact that now she's got so many scorers and so much talent around her that you're not having that other defender shade in from the side and cut space. So all of a sudden, these drives that have been a staple to her game, those lanes open up a little bit more because you can't help off Stewie. You can't help off Sabrina. Can't help off Jonquil. So all of a sudden, the offense is more open to her, but she's not forced to have to do it. So I think it's that perfect fit in that way. And she just brings this juice of a personality and this heightenedness that's just authentically her. And I feel like you can, I was talking to their GM the other day, Jonathan Kolb, when they were here in Washington. That has just rubbed off on everybody else on the team. And it's funny, we've been talking to Stewie for forever.
Literally.
UConn, literally. Since then, in the Olympics, All-Stars, Seattle's, all these places. So it's like, it's not like we don't know Breanna Stewart, right? But all of a sudden, Tasha's got the locker next to her. And she's doing these videos where she's showing Stewie's bag before every game. And I think we're starting to get to see a little bit of a different side of Stewie that we haven't even seen a
ever
ton of.
I don't think ever.
It's bringing out a little bit more juice in her and a little bit more personality in her. Shoot, UNESCO was twerking on a handstand with Tosh holding her ankles the other day. I don't think we've seen that. That's the kind of juice and that kind of stuff flows through a team. Good vibes, trickles down through a team. Tosh has good vibes, especially when they're winning. But that's kind of who she is, and she can just be herself and fitting into New York where, the community is just like perfect for her to just kind of come in and be, braggadocious and be able to make those jokes and just be out there and not feel any kind of judgment or feel like anybody wants her to reel it back in or whatever. I just think that fits her so well, and that's kind of given a piece to New York that's kind of gives them a little bit more juice. And like I was saying a minute ago, those are players that are going to want to win another championship regardless. But now there's a little extra motivation of let's win it for Tosh or let's win it with Tosh. All of that is really kind of meshed in. And again, to have a big point guard that's a facilitator, that adds to an already lengthy defense is just a really good fit there, and a big reason of why they're playing so ridiculously right now.
I think the two best pieces of content that we have gotten out of the WNBA has been Natasha Cloud just having a great time. And then in Minnesota, the Stud Buds have been
oh my gosh,
so
yes.
fun. Man, I have tuned in to that stream every now and then, and I am just cackling. I got to cover Courtney when she was here in Chicago, and there is one interview I did with her that sits with me to this day. And it was media day, and I'm sitting there, and it was right when she got to Chicago, and I knew she's from a small town in the middle of Georgia, hasn't really been in the big. She was in Connecticut for a long time, and we both know Mohegan's not, the biggest city. So
No.
she comes to Chicago, and I asked her, I said, what are some things that have really, what have you embraced about the city? And she goes, y'all's grocery stores are awesome. And I was like, what? She goes, I can have a drink while I'm grocery shopping. And I was like, yeah, welcome to Mariano's, man. Like she's got so much character. I've really liked her and Atisha Heidemann were so good together in Connecticut, and seeing them back together in Minnesota has been really great. But Natasha Cloud, no joke. Anytime I see a video of her that comes out, I watch it. And you can tell that she is having so much fun.
Absolutely.
And I know people, like you said, people are like, how does that? I'm like, but when you're having fun, that mentality of like, oh God, I missed this. It's not there. And basketball is incredibly mental. So to have those good vibes, good vibrations. Yeah. They're very impactful. What do you think's going on in the water in Las Vegas, though? I don't know. I don't think disheveled is the right word. They just look kind of lost. And then they haven't had Asia. She's been dealing with concussion protocol for right now. Concussion, she should be back within, probably 2 to 3 games. But you can't also just have it all rely on Asia. And we know that Jackie Young and Chelsea Gray can be, incredibly impactful, but for whatever reason, something's not clicking in Las Vegas. Can you put your finger on what's going on out there?
I'm not sure exactly, but I kind of go back a little bit to what Becky said the other day of can't decide when to and when not to play hard, and when not to have that juice and not have that juice. Because that feels like the biggest difference so far is just the type of energy that they've played with the last couple years. And I'm not saying it's a conscious decision where they're like slacking off or anything, but they used to come in and it would just be waves and waves on top of you from the first tip. They just came and like it would just
on your neck, like instantly.
It would physically overwhelm teams, on top of the fact that you had, ridiculously elite talent throughout, especially throughout that starting lineup. But they just felt like they played at a certain level where they were going 100 miles an hour from the beginning. And it doesn't seem like they have that same, I don't know if it's pace, I don't know if it's intensity, but it seems like there's moments where, quite frankly, they're kind of a little bit human and like other teams. And we're just not used to them looking like other teams. It's been so long. And we know Jewel and I still think there's part of that, of them getting used to each other. That integration is still working out the kinks and kind of figuring things out a little bit. I don't know if people took Kelsey Plum for granted, maybe, but like she was such a huge part of that run. And sure, she didn't get the love that Asia gets or Chelsea as the point guard and things like that, but Kelsey was just such an incredible scorer and plays, and this energy that we're talking about.
Yeah.
She's one that plays with that energy and that fierceness just all the time. And that kind of, and I don't know, and and I'm not trying to make a straight Jewel to Kelsey comparison, but she does play at a little, she's a little bit more chill of a person just in general, I think. And so there's a difference there just in a style of play, even though they're both incredible individual players. That seems to be the difference, or the biggest difference so far that I see, is just there's there's bigger down lapses. There's bigger gaps that teams can get a run or get back in the game or make their own little run, where before, once they
Was
got
not the
down
case.
by double digits, it seemed like the game was over because there was no way you were covered because they were going to extend that lead.
Mhm.
They got up by 15-20 and that lead was still going to extend. Whereas now it seems like even when they get up a little bit, there's a moment where, okay, you got a chance to, cut into that lead and get back into that game. And if you keep it close, this is basketball with a whole lot of parity in this league this year with some teams that aren't as good that are better than I think anybody really thought. So I just feel like there's chances for teams to kind of chip away during certain stretches of the game that it didn't feel like that before. It felt like, man, you got that punched in the jaw early
And that was it.
and that was it. But it doesn't feel that way this year.
For sure. I always send love to Asia. Concussions are something that are really hard to get through. I've suffered enough in my lifetime to know what it's like to go through it. My last question before I let you go here, Kareem, you kind of, teed it up there a little bit, but there are some teams this year that are surprising people. For myself, maybe for you as well, I don't think anyone expected the expansion team and the Golden State Valkyries to be as good as they are, because just historically, expansion teams aren't very good. Is that like a team that stuck out to you the most, or has kind of been a dark horse, or is there somebody else within the league that you see that has really shocked you in what they've been able to do so far?
Well, I'd say they've probably been the biggest surprise, and even
Yeah.
kind of looking at their roster just made you not believe that they were going to
Right.
be playing as well as they are. And I'm still kind of waiting for them to regress a little bit, come back to the mean a little bit, but they keep winning games, and so
Right.
they might be telling me to shut the hell up in a second. So because it's they're sustaining it, and the two things that they're doing, they're playing really hard and they're playing defense. Those are good recipes to beat teams when teams are, especially if you catch them on an off night. I think, and I don't know if it's fair to call them a dark horse, but I don't think any of us knew how Atlanta would fit together.
Yeah.
Like, you knew the pieces, PG is incredible.
Yeah.
Brianna Jones is incredible. But how are they going to fit in this group together with a new coach that wants to play fast, that is taking BG and Brianna and putting them on the perimeter more than they ever have throughout their career? That's the kind of stuff that you don't know how it work out. It's like fantasy. And they look like a great fantasy team, sure, because you're just throwing individual people there and just like waiting for numbers. But in real life, this is basketball, and you got to be meshed together and play together and things like that. But now, after today, they've won 7 of 8 games. I think they started out a little bit slow, and I think that part of that was Jordan Canada went out with that injury in the first game, but now they got their point guard back, and I think that actually worked out well in their favor, because Tahina Paopao had to start those couple games as a rookie. She got thrown into the mix, but now she gets to come off the bench. But she's got that confidence because she played as a starter, played well as a starter. Felicia Gray and Ryan Howard, who just she scored
33 against Chicago.
Against Chicago, and was held scoreless in the first quarter. So 33 and 3/4.
That's crazy.
And 9 threes.
So
if they're shooting, and Carl Smesco wants to play up tempo and wants to shoot the heck out of a heck of a lot of threes, as many as they can. If they're doing it like that, and those 2-3 are hitting like they are, and then you've got the veteran duo of BG and Brianna, who can just kind of pick their spots, and they're not required to carry as big of a load. All of that seems to be meshing well with how they're playing right now. So I don't know if it's fair to call them a dark horse, because individually they were some really good pieces, but we didn't know how it all would sift out. And certainly over these last 8 games, it's sifting out pretty good.
Yeah, they were somebody, when I first looked at them, I said, I think you can be a top 16. That's how I thought it. I was like, I think you can do this. Will you do this? And then they just blew everybody. What's crazy is if you look at the power rankings across everybody, everybody at the start of the season. Like it's completely different than where we are 10 games into the season, which is why the W is so fun. It's just a great time. Kareem, thank you so much for coming on. I love chatting hoops. You and I, when we sit on press row, we sit there and chalk it up.
Chop it up the whole time. Yeah, absolutely.
Chop it up the whole time. Kareem.
And then we go across the street and have a drink after.
Exactly. Have a good slice. Have a great time afterwards. Exactly. Kareem, if people want to follow you, make sure they find any of the work, or if there's a story that you're working on, where can they find you?
You can find me at the Washington Post. That's real easy. On Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it these days, at Kareem Copeland. On IG, shoot, I made this name a long time ago. I should tweak it. It's Reem Cope. REEMCOPE. My early IG days, and I'm not that good at IG anyways, but a lot of stuff there also. So in those places, it's easy to find me, and we're always writing something. We just had something go up about Georgia Amore the other day. That's the rookie that I didn't mention with the Mystics. She was the number 6 overall pick.
Yeah.
She tore her ACL in the 3rd practice. But it's crazy. Like, she is still such a huge part of this team. She's on the sidelines charting. She's involved in every practice. So it's really interesting that she's actively wanted to stay involved, and they've figured out ways to do so. And that's why I wrote the story, because I was so intrigued by the fact that everybody on the team, coaches, players, unprompted, talk about her all the time. We still really miss Georgia. They talk about how much they miss Georgia. I'm like, you had her for 3 practices.
Right.
You had a rookie for 3 practices. How could you miss her? How could she have such a big influence on the team? So I was really intrigued by that, because we weren't asking about Georgia, but they would bring her up consistently, just kind of out of the blue. So you can find that one. That's the latest thing I wrote. I'm headed up to New York and gonna do some stuff with them, and maybe a little bit of Tasha stuff also.
Yeah.
So we got all this stuff coming. It's always something.
Always something. Kareem, always on top of everything. Thank you so much, Kareem, for joining me this week, and you can catch me next time on the sidelines.